Welcome to today's Explainer. You know, we rarely think about it, but today our mission is to uncover how dense historical philosophy actually acts as the secret architect of your modern English vocabulary and education. We're going to see exactly how the way people thought thousands of years ago directly shapes how we speak and learn today. So, what does ancient Greek philosophy have to do with your modern English vocabulary? It sounds like a total stretch, right? But I want you to play the time travel detective with me today. We're going to dig into the past and find the hidden linguistic clues left behind by history to figure that out. To solve this mystery, we've got 5 eras on our agenda. First, the birth of reason. Second, the Dark and Golden Ages. Third, the rebirth of observation. Fourth, the scientific revolution. And finally, shaping modern language studies. Let's get right into it. Here's our big picture timeline, spanning from the 6th century BC all the way up to the 17th century AD. If you happen to be building a structured timeline for an assignment on the history of scientific philosophy, well, this is exactly what you'll need to anchor your research. Kicking things off with Section 1, the birth of reason in ancient Greece, from the 6th century BC to the 6th century AD. Picture this, it's ancient Greece, and humanity is making this absolute game-changing shift. We're finally dropping mythological explanations and embracing logical thought. Imagine being the philosopher Thales. Before him, if a storm hit, it was just the gods being angry, right? But Thales decided to actually use his mind and logic rather than legends to figure out the arche, the fundamental underlying substance of the whole universe. It's literally the birth of rational explanation. Once that door opened, the momentum just exploded. Enter the heavy hitters. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. These guys were the absolute pioneers of logic and dialectics. Aristotle even wrote this foundational work called the Organon, which practically wrote the rulebook for systematic logical thinking for centuries to come. Now, here's where it hits close to home. The next time you're sitting in an English discussion class and your teacher is just grilling you with critical questions, you are actually participating in ancient Socratic dialectics. No joke, Socrates used this back-and-forth questioning to pressure test the truth of an idea, and modern language teachers use that exact same playbook today to build up your linguistic critical thinking skills. Moving right along to Section 2, the Dark and Golden Ages. This covers the Middle Ages, from the 6th to the 14th century AD. This era gives us a truly stark global contrast. On one side of the world, during the European Dark Ages, scientific reasoning pretty much hit a brick wall, heavily restricted by church authority. But on the flip side, scientific thought was absolutely thriving during the Islamic Golden Age. We're talking massive translation projects, the vibrant preservation of old texts, and just incredible original scientific breakthroughs. These Muslim scholars were the ultimate bridge for human knowledge. You've got Avicenna making massive leaps in medicine and philosophy, Al-Khwarizmi literally creating algebra, and you definitely need to know Averroes. He preserved and interpreted Aristotle's ancient work so brilliantly that it actually survived to spark Europe's intellectual awakening much later. And if you want the ultimate proof that this history is hiding right inside your vocabulary, just look at these Arabic loanwords. Did you know the word alcohol comes from al-kul, or that algorithm is literally named after the mathematician al-Khwarizmi himself? It's mind-blowing. Those 9th century scientific breakthroughs directly dictate the English words we speak today. Which brings us to Section 3, the rebirth of observation during the Renaissance, spanning the 14th to 17th century AD. This was an explosive period of intellectual revival, primarily centered in Italy. The core driver here was humanism. It was a massive ideological pivot away from pure religious dogma and a return to trusting our own eyes. Humanity started placing human reason and direct personal observation back at the center of the search for truth. And nobody, I mean nobody, embodied this vibe better than Leonardo da Vinci. Think about his incredibly detailed human anatomy sketches. They were totally revolutionary. Why? Because he wasn't just blindly copying old traditional texts. He was relying entirely on his own first-hand observation. He literally looked at the real world to understand it. Next up is Section 4, the scientific revolution, hitting its stride in the 16th and 17th century AD. Just look at this absolute powerhouse lineup of scientists: Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, and Bacon. These 4 titans completely shattered the old world order.
They laid down the law that all knowledge had to be rooted in hard, systematic observation, telescopic experiments, and mathematical proof. I mean, Copernicus put the sun at the center of the solar system, and Newton gave us the literal laws of physics.
But when it comes to how we actually research and learn today, Francis Bacon is the real MVP. His inductive method became the absolute gold standard. You don't just blindly trust authority anymore. First, you conduct an observation. Then, you formulate a hypothesis, basically an educated guess. Next, you run an experiment. And finally, you draw a conclusion based solely on hard evidence.
Think about how we apply this right now. Say you're a language education researcher, and you want to know if digital flashcards actually help students retain English vocabulary. What do? You formulate a hypothesis, set up a control group and an experimental group, and run a test. By doing that, you are directly applying the 17th century methods of Bacon and Galileo right there in the modern language lab. It's the exact same framework.
And that leads us perfectly into our final stop, Section 5, Shaping Modern Language Studies, which is really the culmination of all this scientific philosophy. Here is how centuries of evolving science permanently changed linguistics itself. Back in the ancient era, grammar was mostly studied for the art of rhetoric. It was essentially just a tool to help you win arguments or give persuasive speeches. But fast forward to the modern era, and the whole approach flips. Studying language transformed into an independent, empirical science with its own rigorous, systematic methodologies. The real game changer here was Ferdinand de Saussure in the early 20th century. He's the pioneer who truly laid the foundation for modern linguistics. He basically took all that structured, empirical thinking born from the scientific revolution and applied it straight to language. Instead of treating language like some subjective art form, he treated it as a complex, observable, systematic structure. And the ultimate modern proof of this evolution is corpus linguistics. Today, researchers use massive computational datasets to systematically figure out how modern English grammar actually works in the real world. Think about that journey. We've gone all the way from ancient philosophers just trying to stop blaming the weather on the gods to using supercomputers and massive datasets to decode the very fabric of our language. So, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Since history and scientific philosophy have completely rewired how we study language today, how do you think future scientific revolutions, stuff like artificial intelligence or quantum computing, will change the languages of tomorrow? As our tech and methods keep evolving at lightning speed, what will the English classroom of the future actually look like? Well, thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep observing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.